here. We're taking too much of your time already, and it's a beautiful afternoon here in Lansing, Michigan, and wanted to start by introducing the topic one more time, data migration simplified, an introduction to master data and transactional data migration. We're looking forward to introducing Charles. Charlie has been with us now for, also forgot, let me introduce Christian Ganesan, who will also be involved in today's presentation. He's doing our demo this afternoon. Christian, are you there?
Absolutely, Steve. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you very much for coming on. I'm hoping everyone can see the screen. I'm having a little trouble with my technical, there it comes. Very good.
So I think maybe I'd start off with, what the webinar is about and how the topic came about. So initially we had, Charlie, he's, as we all know, a great author. He has, published a lot of books prior to his time in ChainSys. So, he had a book out about master data management, and most recently one about data migration. And, it was a real popular, it was a great hit at the Sapphire, at TechCat, at Oracle Open World, all these events. So we thought, okay, why not do a follow-up and, actually do a webinar out of it. So what were your thoughts on the book, Steve?
Well, actually, we have that book available for anybody that's joining our webinar today. If you'll be kind enough to, in the chat box, include your mailing address with your name, we'll be happy to send the book out to you. You'll see it here in a minute on our slide presentation. We'll be happy to give you one of those. And anyone that joins today's webinar, we're going to forward, if you leave your name and address on the chat, a $5 coffee card from Starbucks. So thank you for your patience in coming on. And we'll make sure that you get a copy of this little book that is a great overview and introduction into the world of data migration, both master data migration and transactional data migration. So we're still having a bit of trouble getting our presentation up on the screen. The way I'd like to break up the demonstration or the webinar today is in three parts. We have a quick little slide presentation that Charlie will be presenting. And then from there, we're going to ask Christian to get into a demonstration. I call it a walkabout. It allows people an opportunity to see our tool in action and get a chance to see how easy this tool is for you to use in your own application. And then we'll leave it open for questions at the end. And feel free to type in those questions into the chat box. I have Vishal here. Vishal Wilson will also be joining us, and he'll be asking those questions directly of our panelists, as well as Charlie himself. Please direct those straight to the site. So let me move this into a presentation mode. Right now, we're seeing Charlie's screen directly.
Yeah, I think we're getting the presentation ready, Steve. Just give us a couple of minutes.
There we go. Thank you. Sorry about that, everyone, but I think we're ready to get started. So without any further ado, let me take a minute to introduce Charlie. And we'll spend some time with the presentation first, and then we'll move on. There he is. Great looking guy. Charlie is the author of those two books that you see up there. And like I said, if you'll give us your name and address, we'll make sure that you get those two books along with a $5 coffee card. Huge Starbucks for joining in today. Charlie comes to us from Dawn Foods, where he was the CIO there for a number of years, has a tremendous amount of experience in ERP, over 25 years, and has participated in that's a bad number. He's done over 10 acquisitions ranging from a single location to multiple sites and countries. As we mentioned, he's the author of our books. He here at ChainSyst is a Vice President and CIO, and without any further ado, I'd like to pass the baton to Charlie and have him run through a quick presentation. Again, if you have any questions, please type them in. Before I do that, Charlie, if you give me a half a second to introduce the company. ChainSyst has been around since 1998. We're a 20-year company. I'm very proud of the fact that we've got 20 years now in the industry. I like to say we were brought up in the last century. Makes us sound a little bit older. Our headquarters is here outside of Lansing, Michigan. Gorgeous day here, sun shining finally. although the temperatures have broken below freezing, so we're getting ready for winter. But on the warmer side, we have our Center of Expertise, or Center of Excellence in Chennai, India. We have over 800 engineers across the globe. Here in the United States, we have a really powerful crew that has put together a host of products, and we're going to focus in on our data migration product today. Over 150 customers, 20 support organizations or engagements around the world. And as you can see, we have operations in several different corners. I'm most pleased with our operation in the Netherlands. We're doing a great job with a client there. Several of our folks are on site, but we have that in Singapore and Dubai, as well as Brazil and the UK. So just a little bit about our partnerships and how our relationships are established. We work across SAP, where we're a silver partner, and Oracle, where we've been a platinum partner now for over a decade. But we work with companies like Procore and Dun & Bradstreet, and even Salesforce, where we're an ISP partner. And you can see that we're well versed in the industry. We were just at Open World, and we've spent some time at SAP Tech Ed this fall. We'll be back at Sapphire in the spring, as well as Collaborate. These are events where we like to press the flesh, as I like to say, get a chance to meet the people face to face. So without any further ado, I'm going to give you Charlie and let him take over the presentation, and we'll move forward, giving as much time to Christian as we possibly can to take you through this product. But again, if you have any questions, please type them in. Charlie.
Thanks, Steve. Pleasure to be here this morning. Welcome, everyone. We want to talk today, as we said, about data migration. Now, with data migration, it's a question of when, not if, you're going to do a migration. At some point in time, you will do a migration, whether it's an upgrade of existing software, whether you're converting a new software, you will do some type of a data migration. And so what we want to do is we want to talk about data migration challenges. We want to talk about a tool-based approach we can use to meet those challenges. We'll talk briefly about data reconciliation and visualization, and then we'll get into a demo. So there are a number of scenarios that apply to data migration. The simplest one is a standalone movement of data from one system to another. And this could be a one-time movement, it could be a repetitive movement, but it's a very simple data migration. You could also have data migrations as part of a software or database upgrade, or even more complex as part of a system conversion or re-implementation. And there's a lot of complexity there, of course, because of potential incompatibilities between the source and target data. You also have migrations as part of consolidating multiple instances. And then finally, data migrations are frequently the end result of both M&A and divestitures. Now, there are a number of challenges that you'll encounter in a data migration. Gartner says that 40% of business initiatives fail because of poor data quality. Data quality is something you absolutely have to address. It's something that's very critical in a data migration. Another area you're going to have where you have issues is IT has issues, is treating a migration project as an IT project. Migration projects are not IT projects, they're business projects. And the business has to be involved from the start throughout the entire project, in particular going through demo scenarios, or going through testing scenarios and the actual testing itself. So the business needs to be an integral partner with IT. And a lot of businesses will underestimate the resources required for a data migration. Data migrations are complex, messy projects. There's a lot of effort required, particularly if you're going from one system to another. And also, you need to ensure that you have the necessary skills. If you're doing a data migration and you have not done one before, that's the time to consider bringing in someone from the outside to impart skills on your staff. You don't want to go through a data migration unless you have people on board or consultants that have done that before. The amount of data to migrate can also be a challenge. Now, that can be addressed by deduplication, consolidation, but you also have to figure out what you're doing with historical data. How much historical data do you actually want to convert? One of the biggest problems you'll uncover is complex mapping and transformation rules. When you're converting from the source system to the target system, particularly when there are different software products, for example, converting from SAP to Oracle or vice versa, there are a lot of effort is required to map out the source fields, to map out the target fields, and to define those transformations. Identifying all data sources. Data sources are not just the source system. They could be cloud systems such as SuccessFactors or Salesforce. It could even be Excel spreadsheets that are maintained by users. So you need to ensure that you have identified all of your data sources as part of the data migration. Interfaces may also be impacted by your data migration. You need to identify all of your data interfaces and then define or decide which ones require modification based upon the changes in the format and content of data. Migrated data in a system conversion frequently is not available early enough in testing, and that could lead to inadequate testing. It's absolutely essential when you're doing a data migration as part of a system conversion that you have complete data available as soon as early on in the project as possible. You also may have challenges on reconciliation. It's imperative that you do a source to target reconciliation. And then finally, not having an audit trail is something that will cause you problems down in the long term. The last thing you want to do is have a successful migration only to have auditors come in 6 months later and ask you to justify changes made to a list of customers. You need to have a complete audit trail of changes when you're doing a data migration. Now, please keep in mind that when you do the importance of data quality and reconciliation during a migration. Now, a data migration is not only a data migration, it's a data quality, a reconciliation, a visualization, and an integration project that feeds cleansed, reconciled data to a data migration project. So data quality is absolutely critical. You want to cleanse your data before and after your data migrations. And the less data you have, the less data you have to clean. You can reduce the amount of data certainly by eliminating duplicate master records, and that may require some standardization to do that. You may want to archive master records that are flagged for deletion. And you may want to reduce the amount of data to migrate by purging or archiving historical transaction data. If you've had data since day one when you installed your ERP system, what's the value to you to bringing over data that's 15 or 20 years old? In the same respect, if you've had customers with whom you have not done business in 10 years, what again is the value of bringing them over? And then finally, you want to ensure that you've identified all of your integrations with other systems that need modification. So we want to take a look at the ChainSyst platform. The ChainSyst platform is an integrated end-to-end data management solution. And you can pick and choose components that you want to use. So this is a tool-based approach to deal with the challenges of data migration. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the App Migrate solution, which simplifies data migration. Now, what is it that's special about ChainSyst? One of the main things is that we have in excess of 2,000 pre-configured templates. And we have these templates for a variety of enterprise systems, for Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, Microsoft, Workday. And this will substantially reduce the amount of time that's required for your data migration. So in terms of the process we use for data migration, we certainly, after going through an evaluation of what we're doing and done the analysis, the first executable step is an extraction. And so we can extract from basically any enterprise system. We can also extract from Excel or any kind of a database. We can essentially extract from virtually any source. Now, I mentioned we have predefined templates that are available, and these templates are available for master data, for transaction data, both open and historical, and also for setups. And with this template approach, You can also create custom templates if they're required. If, for example, you've done customizations or modifications. And the process we use then is all data fields get extracted from the source systems and they're put into a data hub. And in that data hub is where we'll execute data quality and archiving. So the key here is we're using a standardized data hub into which we're going to extract all of our source information. Now, once we've done that, then we'll get into the cleanse, transform phase. So again, given that with the data hub that we set up, we have predefined templates that make it very simple to set up that data hub. And when we use forms-based business rules and a transformation engine that facilitate the process, data is pre-validated before it gets loaded into the target environment. And what does that mean? Well, we bring in the check tables from the target system, and we validate those within that data hub. So before you bring information into information that's going to load properly. So we're not loading information into the target system and then have to clean it up. We clean it up in advance and load information we know will load. We also have automatic sequencing of data migration objects. Obviously, the item master's got to be loaded before routing to bill of materials. And then it preserves data linkages for all dependent data elements. And once we've got our data cleaned, then we actually do the load. And again, this is a templated load. So we've got pre-built sequencing of the master and transaction data. And you can do a load and you can do another load, but you also have the ability of doing incremental loads. We do a change data capture, so you can do iterative loading of that target system. So you can do your initial load and then follow that by incremental loads. The load will handle a very high volume load and very complex business transformations. We have reconciliation both from the source to the hub and the hub to the target. And the data hub itself can become the archiving solution. And this is a fully automated migration process. Now, our entire migration process is integrated with master data management, and that ensures integrity between the master and transaction data. As I mentioned then, the data is pre-validated, so only valid data is loaded. And what this process does is, it allows you to keep the data migration tasks off the critical path, particularly when you're doing a system conversion. And you can commit to a rollout timeline, and you have a reconciled data migration. So how is it that we save time in doing the data migration? Well, first, on the extract and data quality management, there's a lot of manual time that's spent for getting things set up in terms of setting up rules, setting up checks, setting up correct mapping and updating documents. This process is automated. We provide ready-made templates. And these ready-made templates provide business validations and data validations as well. It gives us transformation logic. It knows how to convert an item type from SAP to an item type in Oracle. There's a cross-reference handler, validation of applications, and conversion mappings. So when data is converted or consolidated, we retain a cross-reference back to the original source data. So when you're in your target system, you can determine exactly where from the source system that data came. We do the source and source target transformations, again, saving a tremendous amount of time. These transformations are executed during the migration. And it's a business transformation. It gives you a predictable go-live date, and you can run a number of mock cycles of data. Again, the point here is that you don't have to load your data into the target system in order to edit your data and validate your data. That can all be done within the data hub. And then, as I previously mentioned, all the mappings are pre-configured. The source to target is pre-configured. We have mapping for over 100 applications, and that includes validations. And it supports master and transaction data, both current and historical. It will also support process mappings and business mappings. So you can save a tremendous amount of time in the extraction and data quality management phase. How about the load phase? We can save a tremendous amount of time in the load phase through automation and collaboration. There's no manual processing. We have evidence reporting, basically auditing. You have a complete data audit of everything that happens as part of this migration process. A data assessment is performed. You have project run flow, you get notifications and scheduling. So this entire migration can be scheduled. You don't have to do steps individually manually. This all can be done in an automated manner. And our data quality management, there's thorough data quality management checks. There's the proper sequential loading. Things are automatically loaded in the proper order. There are also dependency checks. Data is revalidated before it's loaded into the target system, again, using the check tables in the target system. You have the ability of enriching or standardizing. You can standardize addresses, for example, using the postal services. Or you can enrich data by using Dun & Bradstreet, for example, grabbing the DMD number. So this involves minimal manual work. As I mentioned, a cross-reference is enabled, so you can always go back to the original source data to know where the target data came from. There's supports a very high volume and a very scalable approach. Now, the loads can be done either in parallel in order to improve performance, or serial if that's not necessary. We can do clustering and load balance and use multiple JVMs. And using multiple threads will substantially improve the processing time. Now, one of the migrations we've done, we loaded 520 million records. So the scalability of the product is certainly there. And it's also repeatable. The templates are reusable, and the validations and transformations are reusable. So when you do your first data migration, and then you run a second test of it, all of the work you've done is preserved, and it makes it much simpler. You're not starting from scratch then on the second and third iteration of your data migrations. And then finally, in the reconciliation phase, there's a preload reconciliation. And what that does is it compares the source data to the data that's in your data mart. And that ensures that you've brought everything into that mart that you expected. And that allows you to spot discrepancies early on in the process. It's also helpful for audit trails. And it eliminates potential data quality risks. In addition to the preload, we also do a post-load reconciliation. And that compares the target data, the data that was loaded into the target. Now, with that data reconciliation, when there is a difference, you have a drill down capability down to the field level. You also have dashboards available that will show you the status of that migration for any set of objects. And the financial reconciliation is complete here. And there's a documentation that's generated automatically. There's reconciliation documentation. The audit trails is automatically generated. There are conversion docs, project status, run flow, and notifications. These are all generated automatically as part of this product. Now, for data quality, we have a get clean, stay clean philosophy. The first thing we do with data quality is we use data profiling. And that allows us to essentially figure out what's in the source data and filtering out source that does not need to be migrated. For data quality techniques, we report and cleanse data errors before the migration. So again, we were cleansing our data before we actually do the migration, as opposed to bringing data into the target system that then has to be re-cleansed. So we have built-in validation rules. We also can define your own business rules. So there's you can use very complex logic if that's required. So you can basically edit the information that's in your data, or validate the information in your data hub based on whatever business logic is required. We have data cleansing then to identify and correct data errors. We have data standardization that allows you to standardize your data, for example, standardizing addresses. We have data enrichment. That's several types of enrichment. First of all, if the source system does not contain information required in the target system, you can have a default value put in. And we also, as I mentioned, can use external sources to enrich data. And then finally, there's data construction. You can add new structures, create new setups, and also create additional master data. And then finally, for the reconciliation, we do a technical and functional reconciliation, and this is all automated. It's done at the field level at the master data, and it allows you to compare setup data across instances. Again, this is all done automatically. So the data reconciliation then gives you a complete audit trail and a complete automated reconciliation of source to target. You also have a visualization capability, and this visualization capability is what gives us here the drill down for the audits. So when there is a discrepancy, we can drill down to the source transactions. This also gives us the ability of visualizing data that's in the data hub. For example, if you're using the data hub as an archiving vehicle, you can use the visualization tool to display that archived information. And then finally, data integration. We have data integration. Basically, you want to ensure that you have the ability of getting the points. We have in excess of 200 endpoint adapters that we've built, and you can also have the ability of building custom adapters. And there's over 1,000 integration and validation templates. Now, the data points you see here are not just the data points for integration. These are the source points for the migration and also the target points for the migration as well. So we use a hub and spoke architecture. The configuration is everything done by drag and drop configuration. No programming is required, whatever. And then finally, for a typical migration here again, what we do is we bring in all of our source data into a data hub. That information then we can come from virtually any source system, and we can go to virtually any target system. Integrated also then is data governance and data cleansing, as well as integration. So this ChainSys platform then gives us a complete data integration tool. And we have a number of customers throughout the world, large and small, that we've used for data integration. We'd be happy to provide references, and case studies are also available.
Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate you stepping in and giving a very good overview of our data migration capabilities and capacity and the tool itself. Without delaying any further, I'd like to introduce Christian Ganesan, who comes to us from our technical services side. He's going to do what I refer to as a walkabout and allow everyone the opportunity to see the tool in action. He spent a lot of time out there in the field working with our individual clients, so he has a pretty good feel for how this tool works, and will be able to guide you through that. So without taking too much time, I'd like to ask to switch from the presentation over to the demonstration, and he's going to do that right now, and then I'm going to introduce Christian. Christian?
Absolutely. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for coming along.
Hey, not a problem, Steve. And thanks, Charlie, for the wonderful introduction. I think you've given us a great overview of what the ChainSys platform can do in terms of migrating data from any sort of source to any sort of target. Before I move into a demonstration, I think there are a lot of questions that are coming in. Please do keep them coming in. We have Steve here monitoring the questions. And, as I'm going through the demo while we're executing some of the programs, Steve will be probably asking them out loud, and Charlie and I will try to answer them.
Very good.
Awesome. So let me make myself the presenter for a second. Okay. So I think you guys should be able to see my screen now. So this is the App Connect tool. So the App Connect tool provides you a no programming approach to any sort of migration. So the first thing that I want to talk about is, what Charlie had mentioned in terms of the endpoints that we cover for migration. So as you can see, there are a lot of connections that we have built for the App Connect tool for migration purposes. And, we have, of course, to the top left is the eChain product. So ChainSys started out as an ERP product developer. So eChain was the ERP that we built. And out of the ERP was the ChainSys platform was born. So we have endpoints covering JD Edwards, eBusiness Suite, Primavera, SAP ECC, SAP S4 HANA, and then any sort of RDBMS, we can connect those as well. So we have endpoints for cloud ERPs, cloud applications, Dynamics, Procore, Workday, Salesforce. And then we also have the capability to use any sort of REST or SOAP API capabilities for an extraction purpose. So, whatever the capability is, whether it's a web service or REST or SOAP API, we're able to expose that mechanism within the App Connect tool during the migrations. So that gives you a little bit of summary of what the tool can do. So what I want to do now is, I thought we have, a pretty wide variety of audience here with us today. So, I wanted to focus on migration relating to both the SAP side as well as the Oracle side. So the first thing that I thought I would do is to, probably take a migration example from an EBS instance going into SAP. So, I have a data flow here that is pre-built for this exact same capability. So what I want to do is I go do my search for this data flow. And as you can see, we have a couple of results that pull up here. So what I want to do is pick up one of these data flows, and I'm going to show you how the execution runs. So if I go into the execution history, there's of course a lot of different stuff that we've done here. So let me go search for this. As you can see, this is related to an EBS to SAP migration. So there's a little execute button right on the bottom right, and I just want to click that. So what that does is that automatically kicks off the process on the background. So, this data flow is given to you out of the box. So what else comes with the data flow? So when I say we give you a data flow out of the box, what exactly does the data flow contain? The data flow contains the extraction capabilities from your source, which in this case is eBusiness Suite. And then it has all of the mapping capabilities from eBusiness Suite into SAP. So, the mappings, the fields that need to be moved, the material field within eBusiness Suite and, the material field within SAP are not the same. Somebody needs to go and functionally, somebody that understands eBusiness Suite and somebody that understands ECC has to go in and functionally map all of these fields, in a traditional migration process. What we have done is we're giving you that knowledge out of the box. We're giving you the functional mapping out of the box. So as you can see, the normalizer and the mapper are given to you right here. And then we have the loading capability. So the data flow also consists of the loading adapters into the SAP instance. So this, we deliver to you as a package. So a normalizer is nothing but, let's say you have a single data entity, coming out of your source instance. Let's say you want to split that data entity into 2 or 3 or 4, depending on what the target is expecting. So the tool is able to give that to you out of the box. So we've put a normalizer here, and then we've done the mapping into the target instance. So as you can see, right now we're doing about 2183 records, about 2,000. So we have pre-validation. So I'm going to come back into this later. So we'll let this process run through. And what I want to do in the meantime is for some of our Oracle audiences, I thought, maybe I'll take the time to maybe do like an employee migration or something of that sort. So, I have a template ready for our employee migrations as well. So I'm back in the workbench. So let me quickly do a search for that data flow. So as you can see, we have an EBS to Fusion. So this is a migration going in from an eBusiness Suite instance into the Oracle HCM cloud. So we going to do the exact same process here. We're going to do an execute. And this is going to take you to the exact same screen that we had seen for the SAP migration. So as you can see, this has all of the mappings from the eBusiness Suite source into the HCM Cloud target. So all of these mappings are given to you out of the box, and then you could configure this mapping. Let's say there are some changes that you need to do within the mapping. You're able to configure this depending on what your need is. So while this is running, I think there have been a lot of questions that are coming in.
I sure have, Christian. I got this great question that just came in from California, actually, San Diego. Bill wanted to know, do you have templates for Sage products, specifically the MAS 500?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. Thanks, Steve. And thanks for the question. So we do have templates for Sage, Sage 500, Sage 300, and most of the denominations within Sage. We've been part of integration projects for Sage. So we have done integrations of Sage with a lot of applications, including eBusiness Suite, Procore, and so on and so forth. And I think, Martin, if we'd be more than happy to show you the templates as well, as and when the time is right. So, Steve, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have another question that just came in. Can you give more information about the downtime requirements on this?
Sure, Steve. So I think maybe I'm reading into the question a little bit, but maybe we need to go into a little more specifics as to what downtime. But usually we don't see any sort of big downtime. So what we do is we have a capability called change data capture within the tool. So what the change data capture does, it's able to reduce the cutover period. So let's say you have a large volume migration, and usually you do a downtime over the weekend or something like that to get all of your information into your production system. So using this change data capture, what we have done for a lot of our big volume clients is repeatedly enable the change data capture, which takes only the incremental data from the source and puts it into the target. So, for example, for an e-commerce giant located in Seattle, I think it was, Steve, we were able to bring the downtime to around 3 hours for a data volume of close to 1 terabyte. So that's the kind of scalability that the tool is able to provide for you. So in terms of downtime, it's I would say it's close to zero. I think Charlie would probably agree.
Yeah, downtime could be near zero downtime if you plan the process properly. And again, it's because of the change data capture.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlie. So the process that I just kicked off has ended. So what I want to show you next is, once this migration happens, we give you a complete dashboard that enables you to view all of the data quality management results. So, you don't want to, take data that is not of good quality and, just do a lift and shift into the target system. So in this case, we have a total of 10 records, and then you can see there's an 80% success and there's a 20% error. So all I need to do is to view the errors, just click on this. So as you can see, it's pretty user friendly. All the powerful stuff is in the background. The user doesn't have to worry about any of those stuff. And you have a clear error message. So as you can see, it looks like there's a cascade error within the address portion of the data. So what I need to do now is, as I can see, there are multiple data sets. I'm not just migrating employee data. I'm doing person, address, name, relation, assignment, so on and so forth. So the error was in the address portion. And as you can see, we have a clear error message saying the country name is invalid. And there are 2 records, that have the wrong country name. So what is the error over here? Okay, so looks like the country has been spelled out as USA. I think what we usually input is US. So I'll just do a quick change. And as you can see, there are 2 errors, but I'm correcting it only once. So the reason we're doing that is because the tool gives you a consolidated error report and consolidated error correction. So let's say, in a real large-scale migration, thousands or tens of thousands of records could have the same error. You do not have to correct it tens of thousands of times. You're going to see one error report, and then you just do a little save, and that is going to apply to all of the error records. So we've just done that, and there should be a little revalidate button over here. There it is. So I just do a quick revalidate, and the process should kick off. Awesome. So as you can see, it looks like the revalidation is going through. Again, the pre-validation step is being conducted. And the next thing that I could do is, as you can see, it's 100% success now, and I just need to execute this process. So simple as that. So it looks like we have a couple of other questions coming in.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Christian, I'd like to throw this question over to Charlie. And the question comes from Arvin. The question specifically is about data migration. Is data migration between applications, i.e. Oracle or to SAP or vice versa? Or is the data migration related to on-prem versus cloud applications? What kind of data are we talking about, and how is it related to the different applications or locations?
When we're talking about the data migration capabilities, essentially it's from anything to anything. So it could be EBS to SAP, it could be SAP to EBS, it could be ECC to S4HANA Cloud, it could be on-premise to cloud. Whether it's on-premise or cloud doesn't matter. So basically we can handle virtually any source and any target.
And that's related to the fact that we have extractors and loaders that are specifically set up to for those individual cases, and we can move forward from there into our data mart. And it's there we can manipulate the data, do the transformation that's needed, and then shift it into the target instance. Very good, thank you. I've looked at a number of different questions that were up here, and I had a new one come in from Mohammed. How about migrating the entire SAP EC6 run into an Oracle R12 data to the SAP HANA database? Can you talk about that?
Just 1 second. Yes, we certainly can. We do ECC to S4HANA migrations. Running on the Oracle database in ECC is not a problem. We can essentially do any database conversion, and we do the conversions from ECC to S4HANA. And that's a radical change, of course, in database, going to the HANA database. But the source database, we can handle Oracle, SQL, basically any source database.
Very good. We've asked Vishal to come in here as well and spend some time talking about our products. But before I do that, let me give it back to Christian.
Absolutely, Steve. Thanks. I think we'll have the questions coming in, but I need to show the people before the time runs out the execution that has been completed. So let me just go in quickly. As you can see, I wanted to show you what the status of the SAP migration was. As you can see, we're at the pre-validation stage. About 2,000 records have gone through, and I just wanted to show you the consolidated data quality management report before we jump into the next questions. And as you can see, we also have a post-load reconciliation step that Charlie was mentioning, and once this completes, we'll be able to see a reconciliation report of this as well. So we have about 4 error records and 2179 success. So what I'm going to do is let's say I'm happy with this. I'm just going to run through with this. So what it's going to do, it's going to migrate only the success records. The error records that have not passed the pre-validation are still going to stay in the App Connect data mart. So even though I've clicked on execute right now, it's only going to push in the data and through, the revalidation, the execute, and right now the data loading is happening into SAP. So while this is happening, Steve, back to you and Vishal for the questions.
Very good. Here you go, Vishal. Like to ask a couple of questions that have come in, please.
Hey, Steve, thank you very much. So we have a question here which states that how complex is the typical data migration project and what's the typical timeline from start to finish? Can Charlie answer that quick?
Yeah, data migration projects are going to vary in terms of complexity. If you're probably the most complex one is going to be either converting from one software system to another, for example, SAP to Oracle or vice versa. Also, consolidation can also be quite complex. Most of the migrations that we've seen done before we get on scene, you're talking basically somewhere between 6 and 12 months. At least that's what a study by Gartner showed. Based upon the tools that we bring to bear, it's actually possible to migrate within a 12-week period. Again, that time is going to vary based upon volume of data, based upon the number of customizations that you have, but 12 weeks is a reasonable target.
Thank you, Charlie.
Can we send this back to Christian to go back over to the data demonstration for to show them the next steps?
Absolutely, Steve. I think the EBS diffusion has successfully completed. So I just want to pick that up and see what the status is on there. So I'm going to pick up the data flow that I just ran. Just to do a quick summary report. Apologize about the connection. Oh, okay. As you can see, we've successfully completed the process. And what I want to do now, you've seen it's 100% success. So what I want to do is I want to pick up the data and make sure that I search for the right data within Fusion applications. So as you can see, I usually want to do a search according to person number. So it looks like it starts with a 124. Looks like that's the prefix that we have entered. So let me quickly go in to the Fusion instance. I think I should have already logged in. Let's see, 124. Right, so I just do a quick search for 124 and then do an enter. Oops, percentage. And there you go. So all of the data that we just created has successfully been migrated into Fusion applications. So that is for the employee part. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes while the SAP migration completes. As you can see, that process is still in the active status. So as you can see, if you go to my all active, that process is still running. So that's about 2,000 records. I think the data loading is happening as we speak. So once this is complete, I think we'll come back to this. But in the meantime, again, back to Vishal.
Go ahead, Vishal. If you could ask another question of Charlie.
Thank you, Steve and Krishnan. So we have a question about how do I measure the data quality results through the DQM process?
We have a number of dashboards that are available that will show you status of data quality, a number of reports available as well. Remember also, in terms of when you're looking at data quality, you can define your own business rules to determine what that quality, how that quality is going to turn out. But we have dashboards that show summaries.
Thank you, Charlie. So we have another question about security and how. So the question states, how do you erase my data from your servers after the migration is completed?
We have tools that we use that do a thorough erasure, so there's not a sensitivity issue there. I notice we've had several questions come in about using DMO and using the SAP migration tools to go from ECC to S/4HANA versus our tools. What's the difference? I think one of the major differences is the additional functionality that our tool provides. Remember that our data migration tool is part of an overall data migration suite. So it gives you a number of data quality capabilities that you can use before the migration and also after the migration. It gives you data governance capabilities that you can use. It also gives you the ability of doing simplification of data. For example, you can define screens very simply that contain data from multiple SAP views on a single screen. That information then is in the data hub and gets pushed into S/4HANA as you choose to have it done. So the main reason that you would look at our tool is because of the additional capabilities that you have. It's not just the data migration, but it's also the data cleansing, it's the data enrichment, it's the data governance, and the associated capabilities.
Thank you, Charlie. So we have another question, which is kind of like the other question we had, and it states, is the migrated data copied or saved in a middleware system, or is it deleted once the migration is done?
Okay, all of the source data is brought into a data hub. And then the conversion is done then, the cleansing and so on is done in that data hub. And then the data hub, information, the data hub goes to the target system. It's your option as to what happens to that data hub. That data hub can certainly be completely eliminated. There's nothing that requires that data hub to survive. But you may want to continue using that data hub for a variety of different reasons. Again, one of the reasons I mentioned was if you're converting from a legacy system to a newer enterprise system, and you have historical data you want to archive, you don't want to have to retain necessarily that legacy system and the potential licensing issues to be able to make that information available. You can make that information available in the data hub using our visualization tools. But again, nothing requires you to retain that data hub once the migration is complete.
Let's pass this back to Christian as he continues as a demonstration and showing us how the tool works. Christian?
Absolutely. I think we're right on time. So it looks like the migration of the 2,000 records into SAP just completed. So what I want to do is just look at the data quality results that the tool's given us. So it looks like we have about 53% success record, and then of course 47% is the error. And just like I mentioned, the tool also provides a consolidated summary of all the errors. And as you can see, we have bucketed all of these errors into application errors, cascade errors, constraint-based, formatting-based, and validation-based. So, when you just see this number of, 47%, you don't have to be scared as to, not knowing what exactly it is. The tool clearly gives you, a categorized data quality report, as well as, the exact data plus an error message, which I'm about to open up and show you here right now. As you can see, the error message here that we can see is that the field is defined as a required field and it does not contain an entry. So it gives you what the field exactly is. And if you are a user, you just need to go to that field and make sure you know what SAP is expecting, and then put the data in there. So it looks like we're running out of time. So what I'll do is just look up the success records that have already been migrated. And before I do that, if I want to do a post-load reconciliation, I have that capability here as well. So a post-load reconciliation is nothing but a comparison of the data that was in the source and that has been migrated into the target. It looks like it's giving me a little bit of time to pull that data up. So while that is happening, let me just quickly search for a material that I'd created. It was MM05 was a prefix. If I do an enter, as you can see, we have the data available. So looks like we've not created all of the views, but then we see that the data is already there. So I want to see if the reconciliation dashboard is pulling up. Anything else we have in terms of questions, Steve?
Well, we're running out of time, but I think we have one more question that Vishal would like to ask Charlie, and then we'd like to make sure that everyone fills out their name so we can send you off one of his books, as well as send you off a coffee card for joining us today. So, Vishal?
Thank you, Steve. So we have another question. Can you merge data from different sources? Charlie?
Yes, you can do a migration where you have multiple sources. You can merge that information into the data hub and then bring it into the target system. And those data sources don't have to be the same software or the same database. So we will handle multiple sources and then bring that information then into the target system combined.
Thank you, Charlie.
So, Vishal, we're nearing the end of our hour. We wanted to thank everybody for joining in. And if we could, we'll switch back to our presentation and allow you to see how you can contact us. That last slide will give you our rest of our panelists here today. And if you have any specific questions, please let us know, and then we'll be able to get directly back to you. Vishal, do you have anything else you want to add?
Thank you, Charlie. So yeah, I would just like to add that you can, for more information, you can look up our website. We have a live chat where you can talk to a real person. And if you have any further questions relating to your unique questions or to your organization, you could definitely email us and email Charlie. And I would like to end with that.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll end the webinar at this point, and we'll get back to you at our next webinar. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.